No, I don't pick on women.
All right, and when you want to advance the slide, just kick me. All right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I hope y'all are trying to stay cool in here. My name is Tiffany Barnwell. I'm not Udonis, but I'm with the Sidewalk program at DOT, and we're here to propose a sidewalk project at Grand Army Plaza. So tonight we'll walk you through the project's purpose and design, and we look forward to hearing your feedback and answering any questions you may have. So the project is focused on two key priorities: preserving the natural beauty and character of the park and ensuring the safety and accessibility of the sidewalks for all pedestrians, especially seniors, children, and people with disabilities. The work is to be done by DOT in conjunction with the Parks Department as part of their State of Good Repairs program. Based on the cost estimates, the project is going to cost about $380,000 to repair, and it's going to be sidewalk replacement on 2 parts of the park. So the repair is going to be on Plaza Street East, from Eastern Parkway to Vanderbilt, and from Vanderbilt starting at Plaza Street East up to the Bend. And not only will we be repairing sidewalk, but we're going to be removing the cobblestone and replacing it with grass ribbon. So this just shows the extent of the work. Next slide. So this work is similar to work that was done on the west side of the park by Prospect Park Alliance last year. So we just want, to mirror the same work on both sides of the park. Next slide, please. I'm not sure if you can really see it here, but this is, all right, so here, this is existing. This is like the cobblestone, but it's all like broken up in disrepair, and it's a trip hazard, and it's just dangerous. So we're gonna remove the cobblestone and replace it here with grass ribbon. We won't be doing anything to any of the street furniture, any of the street trees, or anything like that. It's just repairing the sidewalk and the cobblestone. So these slides just shows how the park looked like around the 1900s. So way back then, the park, it had grass ribbons. So we're pretty much restoring it to its original form. As you see here, it was all grass ribbons. I'm not sure when the grass ribbon was replaced with cobblestone. Next slide, please. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Yolanda Brown. I'm a senior project analyst over at East Sidewalks. And so I'm just going to go over the scope of work with you guys. So right now, this is just a view of the existing condition of Plaza Street East from Eastern Parkway to Vanderbilt Avenue. And as you can see right here where the defective sidewalk is here. We're going to do a full sidewalk replacement to mirror Plaza Street West. And we're going to remove the existing cobblestone, as my colleague said. We're going to remove it and replace it with grass ribbon. And this is just on Vanderbilt Avenue, starting at Plaza Street East to the Bend. And so we're not going to move any street furniture, any lamp posts, anything like that. We're just replacing the sidewalk and removing the cobblestone. So this is just showing the amount of defective sidewalks on both stretches. So we're going to be replacing around approximately 7,300 square feet of sidewalk. So we're going to be replacing that and taking up all the cobblestone along both stretches and replacing those with grass ribbon. And so this is just a photo of the recent work done on Plaza Street West, where the sidewalk was replaced with pigmented concrete sidewalk. So it's going to mirror that. It's going to mirror that same exact sidewalk on Plaza Street West. And this is how it looks now. These pictures was from October last year, but this was just done. And this is how it looks now with the cobblestone be replaced with the grass ribbon. So we're not really doing anything new as such. We're just mirroring what was done on the other side of Grand Army Plaza.
Approximately how long will the work take?
Well, it's gonna take longer for us to get through all the board's approval processes. This is our second community board meeting. We have a borough board meeting, and then we have the landmark preservation committee that has to go through there and public.
Oh.
What is grass ribbon?
Oh, it's like this picture kind of very good, but it's supposed to be grass here, but it's just that piece of side look like and side where it's grass.
It's like right now, you see that where the cobblestones are here? Yeah, that becomes grass. It becomes long. Which,
Right, that's the Parks Department. Yeah, that was sort of my question too, because Parks Department is used to come down and spray that we're between the cobblestones. However, unlike Prospect Park West, on Prospect Park, especially Danville and Flatbush, people cross the street. People jaywalk quickly to get to the train station, which is not the same situation on Prospect Park. Plaza Street West either. It's different the way that people come from to get to the train station. Is it gonna be grass for long? It seems, and it also seems like it would be better that, if you're gonna have a land, if people are jaywalking, it'd be better place to land on cobblestone or porous pavement for DD. Yeah, say or porous pavement, like DEP just whatever. Yeah, I would say.
I think we can go from grass to something better more easily.
Yeah, I know. It also seems like I also have a question. It's like how now this has been done Prospect Park West. How is this working for the people? Because it's like if you're parked alongside there, people are getting out. They're going to step into the wet grass, mud, or possibly something that they can't see, that they don't want to step in, but you can see with cobblestone on park. No, if you're parked and you're getting out.
Jaywalking's legal.
Yeah, first of all, we're in New York. But they just legalized jaywalking. But if you're parked and you're getting out of the car, you're stepping in the wet grass. Frequently stepping in the wet grass. How has there been any feedback from the Prospect Park West side of this experience? I sort of want to know what they think before we decide to do that.
Yeah, it's different community boards. No information. Yeah.
Exactly where you guys do this, and I think it's a good idea. But I don't know if you guys know that little farm right there is infected with rats. When you come out of the train, the 2 and the 3, rats all day, and rats like to chill in grass. So I want you guys to think about that before they do the whole layup, and maybe you guys could get the rat department to come do something while you guys are building it, and see if we can eliminate this problem. Because trust me, they live in that park. They are in there. You come out of the 2 and the 3 after 10 o'clock and tell me what happened. Okay? You're not going to walk home. You're not going to walk home you're gonna sprint home. And since I got the floor right now, you talked about you're supposed to cross. You know, back in the day, we had this thing cross at the green, not in between. Okay, that's old folk stuff. Okay, now we didn't have 5 minutes timeout back then. We had 5 minutes of my parents kicking my butt if I don't do what they said, right? And exactly how to cross the street. Now, until you guys make a video, and I can help you make this video. If you guys make a video showing what people do stupid when they walking, riding their bikes, and driving their cars, okay? Until you make that video and make people see it. When someone go buy a bike, they got to see the video. When someone got to renew their license, they got to see the video. Even if you're getting a non-ID, non-driver license, you got to watch this video. Until you make a video like that, the streets are not going to get safe, no matter how many bike lanes you put, because it's stupid human decisions that cause the accidents. Thank you very much.
I'm just trying to understand what is the motivation for this in the first place, you know, from the west side as well. I mean, is it about stormwater collection, or is it just about the uneven surface?
I'm not sure about the west side. So, parts of our team and reach out to someone and it's just not.
This also includes repair on the side.
So it was the side.
So this is Plaza Street West from Flatbush Avenue. That's what it looks like now. And then you see the grass.
And that's on the inner ring of
Yes.
Plaza Street, not the upper.
It's in the burn side.
Real quick, I want to reiterate what he said about that particular part of the park is infested with rats even during the day. They're just real casual walking around. So you definitely need to do something, because I don't know if they're going to burrow down in there or. Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
You think so?
Yeah.
Really? These are Brooklyn rats, honey.
Yeah.
They don't get scared. These rats don't get scared when they hear the helicopter. Some of my neighbors have a heart attack when they hear helicopters.
Yeah.
These rats,
They're real
they don't
casual.
care about the helicopters. They don't care about anything.
But I had another question. So I wanted to just reiterate that and say it is an issue. But then I also was just curious, are you going to coordinate, since we just had this great presentation from DEP, is this going to be part of a storm water catch basin, or is it just like a little flat layer of grass? Or?
One of the things that hampers this is a land.
Oh, I see.
They only have so much that they can do.
So they can't go put the storm. Okay. Okay.
Because it's a land.
But it's still landlocked.
Right. It becomes a much instead of a
Oh, okay.
$100,000 project. That is zero. Sorry, I'll come back.
That you spend this money.
Scott, then out.
So, love it. I can do repairs. And I want to bring to your attention another word that might be a term you use, but not in good repairs. And it is the structure of Houston Parkway from Grand Plaza up to maybe Washington, where the grass strips that exist, the highway side is fine. No one really walks there. But the apartment side of the greenway, not the street, so that may not be your jurisdiction, hard to tell, but like. So Eastern Parkway from Grand Plaza to Washington gets a lot of, it's tons of foot traffic, right? There's a museum, there's a subway, there's Well, I think what happens is I think what happens is the Caribbean Labor Day Festival gets a ton of traffic, and then the grassy strips get really beaten up. But that section's on the hill, so when the rains come for the whole lecture, then you get erosion. Like you see, there's like dirt piling up. Anyways, I think it's no longer in good repair. It's no longer grassy, but like patches of dirt. It's not dirt with patches of grass.
The sidewalks are relatively tough, but it's the grassy areas.
I would consider the whole thing the sidewalk, and some are cobblestone and some are dirt. But yeah, so it's unclear how we want to classify it, but the pedestrian walkway, grassy strip that you're putting in has eroded, I think.
Oh, it's making more sense.
Thank you.
What? Well, I'm not a landscaper.
Well, I didn't see it. But
Can I take this with you? And
and also 311 points, but that's okay.
Yeah, I will. Should I do one or one per square foot?
It'll be registered as a bulk complaint if you list, like,
If you say like from, you said like.
All right.
35
Say
to
the whole-
175.
Yeah.
it'll be.
I think this is a whole range. I think it's from like 1 to
All right,
200.
Alan.
The wrap topic, the mayor showed up on my block yesterday or 2 days ago, and talked about doing some of the agency program featuring parks and gas on the wraps. Are you engaging with that? Great project.
So time out, that is technically a Parks Department project. These ladies are from DOT.
But there were DOT participants that.
And sanitation is there too. It is under the RATSAR's wide portfolio. But yes,
So we'll take note of everything that you guys are saying and bring it back.
so, Alan, thank you for mentioning that, because I meant to bring that up. The mayor did come to Community Board 8 on Sunday. He had a press conference in June opposite Stroud Playground, US 316, where he demonstrated this, it looks like a small generator. Turn it on, it's got hoses, it generates carbon monoxide that exterminators who work for the Parks Department are going to address the street tree beds, only street tree beds, citywide. It's an price tag. It's only for the low price of a few $100,000. They are going to systematically exterminate burrows of rats that are found on street trees on our streets. It's a Parks Department project, not transportation or sanitation. But I guess I should be flattered the mayor chose our district to demonstrate this. But it's a good 20-minute little. No rats were visibly harmed. we were standing there waiting, wondering if they were going to come screaming out the burrows, but no. I think they may have pre-killed the rats. So thank you, Rebecca. Any other questions on Plaza Street on this project only? Because DOT's got a free one with code.
Okay, once you get the cobblestones up, you put this grass, right? You could take this back to the Grand Academy. Right, but I found once I dug up all my grass and I put a thin layer of metal in my area and then put the dirt, and those guys did not come back. There was no place for them to bury themselves into. But if they're going to put just grass and not put, a protective thing underneath there, next to me, right?
Because these guys live in the burrows.
Yes.
The rats are going to live in behind that fence, and then they come out and leave, right? So if to offering everyone's point, if this is now going to become grass, that's much more diggable, I would presume, for our four-legged friends. So yeah, something to be concerned with. Was there another hand?
With this green infrastructure, I really think that you guys should look into that. We as a city need to be more efficient, cost efficient with your department and landmarks to get certain things done. This has nothing to do with any one structure. This is about for public facilities. And again, our city needs to be more efficient, cost efficient to get this thing done, to get this infrastructure completed with this project at the same time. You guys should look into that because, as the presentation said before, we're concerned about flooding. They're putting much emphasis on me as a homeowner to be responsible, and I'm putting emphasis on my city to be responsible.
I like that.
One more question for.
No, just a comment. There are rain gardens on the inner side of the, on the burn side of the street, so it doesn't make sense that you couldn't add, if you're going to do this, you couldn't add infrastructure.
Feasibly, it's doable, but those were put in as part of the big project that was done. I don't know. But yeah, that was a lot of planning.
Excuse me, is this a landmark? Why not just repair the problem? Since it's a landmark, leave it the way it is. Why change it?
Because this was approved on the west side.
Who was approved by who?
PCA, Prospect Park Alliance, got it approved on the west side, had the cobblestone, so we just have to fix it.
Let's do something different. Let's keep the east side the way it is. And not spend this money. Maybe we could spend this money on something more important.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Who's next?
Rochester. The Rochester.
Rochester 6. No. Hi, how are you? I hope nobody has viruses.
Oh,
It's the TV.
this is
I didn't realize that. It's the TV. You guys must have been thinking I had two heads when I was saying, what are the green and what are the yellow? Yeah, I don't know if that's the way I'm attached, but this thing is usually in living color. So. Does it have a remote? Do you have a remote? No.
Dangerous.
Let's see how we do in black and white. Yeah. All right, and your name?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Diaz. I'm doing a great time in predictability at DOT. Here to talk about projects that are happening. I'm trying to be quick in the first couple slides. Look at so, yeah, I'm just going to go over a brief background of the corridor. This is our proposal and then so, starting with background, our unit does a lot of work that comes out of this plan from New York that came out a few years ago that ultimately is aimed at improving creating safety and sustainable other trade transportation methods to overall help the truck network become more efficient in the city. So that a lot of what that comes from truck priority safety corridors, which are non-truck corridors or truck corridors that have a lot of instances of pedestrians and truck crashes, road users, also improving existing truck network, and then most recently working to update the city truck route network. And of course, so how do we do that? We have a wide range of strategies that we work with to help improve the truck network and truck priority corridors. This project falls under conflict reducing designs. So, just to give a brief overview of Rochester Avenue, I'm sure any of you are aware of it. It is a Vision Zero corridor as well as a truck priority safety corridor. However, it is not a truck route, but there are, meaning there's higher instances of truck-related fatalities, pedestrian, and traffic along the corridor. It is a heavily traveled corridor. However, it is geometrically green and some locations in addition to all of that, there's also multiple schools along the corridor, and there exists an opportunity overall to provide safer, shorter crossings for pedestrians and common. So this is our corridor limits. East New York to Fulton, so essentially the whole corridor. As I mentioned, it is a really very corridor. So over the past 5 years, there have been 24 instances of severely injured individuals along the corridor. Of that, 24, 2 are associated with truck fatalities, and 12 are associated with pedestrians and cyclists fatalities.
Stupid humans.
So essentially, there are instances where there are long crossing distances, there are wide intersections that encourage speed behavior and wide turns. But in the past, there have been a couple of other projects and initiatives essentially in the area. We have Eastern Parkway Phase 3 improvements and Phase 4 improvements. The East New York pedestrian improvements back in 2018, and then right turn traffic calming that has happened at various intersections on the corridor, and most recently Eastern Parkway and 14th Parkway. So this is just a brief overview of where we are seeing those crashes. Of course, we're seeing them at Atlantic, Eastern Parkway, and then following behind it, Park Place, St. John's, and East New York. And so, but this was listed in color, but the lighter colors are just overall crashes, and then the darker colors is represented the KSI, so killers really injured.
Did you say that slowly and louder?
Sorry. The light colors represent total injuries, and then the dark colors represent severe injuries or fatalities.
And do you know if any of those are in fact fatalities?
Not off the top of my head, but
So KSI is going to
killed or severely injured. So yeah, so just to give a brief background of that, the statistics from our data analysis, nearly 42% of injuries that occurred on the corridor involved pedestrians crossing at a signal. 33% of injuries occurred with pedestrians crossing the block. 20% of all crashes resulted between the hour or occurred between the hours of 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. And then nearly 30% of other motor vehicle crashes were from rear-end incidents. So what's our motivation? So in summer 2013, we had our street ambassadors unit conduct what we call intercept surveys along the corridor. So they spoke with residents about overall safety concerns that they saw on the corridor. So pedestrians who were surveyed reported safety concerns around unsafe vehicle behavior, such as speeding, as well as sidewalk conditions. 40% of respondents did say they had concerns around trucks double parking on Rochester, as well as trucks speeding around corners. And then almost half of respondents had said that they would like to see their curb median extensions on the corridor.
Right.
Next slide. So to continue, double parking results, or double parking reports were highly concentrated throughout the corridor, with 40% of respondents saying they had concerns with double parking. A third of respondents had concerns with trucks turning and making large turns throughout various intersections. And overall, a third of respondents said they'd like to see either signal timing changes, new parking regulations, as well as neighborhood voting zones. And then, of course, in addition to trucks, there was also top concerns with vehicles as well, speeding, unpredictable movements, and failure. Next slide. So, existing conditions, we want to show you what we're seeing in addition to what we've heard. So at multiple intersections we saw high volumes of pedestrians crossing long distances with multiple interactions with the vulnerable road users and vehicles. Vehicles parking either too close to the intersection or on the crosswalks, and then wide intersections that encourage speeding and failure. So this is the southern half of Rochester, from Sterling to East New York, kind of highlighting where we're seeing those issues. So the long crossing distances, no crosswalks at President Street, blind spots because vehicles are parking too close to the intersection, high volume of pedestrians, frequent double parking, and failure to take yield. So when we get to the northern part of the corridor, we see a lot of the same issues. Now we have the schools in this area. We see more children, high lines of children crossing, high crossings with the NYCHA housing and the bus stops, long crossing distance at Atlantic, and then vehicle and pedestrian conflicts at Fulton with vehicles failing to when the on-left turns, and then double parking issues. So what are we proposing? Starting on the south side, to kind of solve the issues that we're seeing, ultimately wanting to add clean curb extensions at select intersections where we're seeing this high pedestrians crossing, formalizing the intersection at Carroll and President to kind of narrow it down and reduce that speeding, as well as installing neighborhood loading zones to combat the double parking with trucks and cars, and then various slow turning, turn calming treatments, and signal timing changes. And then the big one is installing an enhanced crossing at President Street to the park, given that right now there exists no flexible crosswalk. Yeah,
What's that proposal again?
an enhanced crossing.
Are you going to go, does the rest of the presentation go deeper?
Yes.
Okay, hold the questions, we'll get there.
And then the north part of the corridor, essentially the same treatment, select intersections of the extensions where feasible, and then potential signal timing changes to allow to prevent the bottleneck of cars, and then turn calming treatments as well. So this slide highlights what this enhanced crossing would be. There are no crosswalks currently across Rochester for pedestrians at the crosswalk, as well as adding curb extensions to reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians and ultimately give them a safer opportunity to cross the street and tightening geometry so cars are not speeding through that intersection.
And this is a signal.
It's no signal, it's signage, and
But it's going to be a signal.
no, unfortunately, it was not approved for a signal because of traffic constraints.
It's stop sign?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, my question was, is there a traffic light here? And the answer is no. This is now controlled only by stop signs and indeed. I'm sorry, I said hold questions and here I am.
Well, this is the in-depth slide of what this will look like. But essentially, it'd be signage that points at the ground. Vehicles must stop here to allow pedestrians to cross it. I believe there's flashing lights.
Usually, no, that's not the standard, but yeah, this is usually facilitated with signage that's specifically installed. So there's a lot of locations in the city where if it fails to meet the warrant for signalization, this is the next step to be able to implement something that facilitates
Well, if anyone had any questions on this specific thing.
President of Rochester, anybody? Keep rolling. I may come back.
Okay. And then this is an example of what the thing is, the curb extension would look like at various intersections. It won't essentially look like this, but it'll be a combo of sorts if the vehicle turning movements allow for it. This is an example of what Prospect Place and Rochester look like. And then, of course, signal timing changes so we can move vehicles across the board quickly and allow pedestrians to cross. Ultimately, this would reduce the crossing distances for pedestrians, improve pedestrians' ability to be cyclists and other vehicles, and on traffic. I think that's the. Sorry.
One question on this configuration. If you're driving on Prospect Place, you approach the intersection of Rochester, and you want to turn right on Rochester, why is there no daylight institute there on the tight right turn?
I believe, technically,
I mean, it seems to me you would want to bump out the sidewalk there. And this is one of our frustrations that we've had design-wise with a lot of what you've done, which, like earlier, there seems to be a logical gap, which is your danger is from a car that's turning right across crossing pedestrians, and you think you want to protect them more. And time again, we see a failure to include that movement into a daylight. Is there a basis for that?
It's a shipping on the public
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, hi, I'm Luke Salvador, I work at the Department of Transportation.
we see this kind of challenge a lot. It's because I'm assuming that this intersection is trying to accommodate a box truck turning right. Okay. So in that case, you wouldn't want to put a curb extension where we know a box truck is going to pass through, because that would indicate to pedestrians that it's a safe place to stand, but in fact, it might not. So that's where we only put curb extensions where we've mapped it out and you can see that there's going to be no conflicts. That's an answer. Thank you.
We will take your feedback.
More on this configuration. Just
How much is that?
that's not on this configuration.
Okay, I got one more question.
Okay, so why do you need two different curb extensions on the same side of the street if the street is a width of only 32 feet?
It might not be 32 feet right now.
Okay, I'm very familiar with Rochester Avenue. I can tell you that the majority of the street is less than 30.
Yeah.
And on that particular northern section of it, it is about 30 feet. So why do you need two different curb extensions in the same direction?
Well,
You would think it would just make more sense to put patty corners to each other, if necessary at all.
well, this one might facilitate a right turn, so the truck or vehicle might not be able to make that right turn.
Okay, but if you put it, as I say,
Yeah, you can put it here.
if you keep that one on the south, that's the southeast side, and you add one to the northwest, that would just make a lot of sense. And it
Southeast, northwest, right? So
Keep
instead
that
of
one on
one
the
here,
south?
put that here.
yeah, just,
But again, now you've got that tight right issue for the Rochester traffic.
is it necessary to have two?
It might not. That's what to receive your feedback as well, so we can change the proposal as.
Okay, and also, like, at that location, there's not only a daycare on the northwest side, but there's also the school on the southwest side. So now, with that curb extension, you are inhibiting the school buses from being able to get easy access to the front of the school, which is where the kids go in.
Yeah.
And also on the Rochester side. So,
Well, I mean, you're more familiar with it, but when we've done outreach and site
if your outreach was really
site
limited, and,
visits.
like, you were forced to choose an answer. Even if
Well,
it was
sorry, I didn't mean the outreach. When we did our own site visits, we saw the buses double parking anyways here. So, I mean.
We'll take your comment and we'll send you a response.
Anything else on this? All right, let's move on. I'm sorry, Lenny, you have a question. So this is an example.
This is an example.
Prospect and Rochester. How many of these intersections would I'm going to go back to the big slide?
Yeah.
So you're thinking like Park, Prospect.
But it might not all be feasible, so we are looking at each intersection to see what we can possibly do. And then the other one is East New York.
So East New York, nothing else on New York. Park, Prospect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then this slide just talks about overall benefits from the proposal, including shortening crossing distance for pedestrians, calming traffic, and slowing vehicle movements, increasing providing a new crosswalk, improving care management, and reducing conflict between motorists and pedestrians or vulnerable women.
Thank you. Is that
There's a slide talking about.
I have a question, because I'm familiar with that area, and would it be more of a safety project to put traffic lights and stop signs? Because one of them has a two-way street,
Are you talking about President Street?
Prospect and Rochester.
Yeah, where's that place?
There is a single one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was for President.
President? That's this intersection. President Rochester. T.
Next is just this is the slide show where we are
June 2025?
presenting to you all and then refining the project from the feedback that you may have and then thinking of fall implementation with agency resources. So it might be.
All right.
I have a quick question. So what are
Wait,
Sorry.
please. Be recognized. I'm going first. I haven't forgotten what my question was. Mr. Kirk, go ahead.
Is Rochester Avenue a truck route?
It's a truck priority.
What's that mean?
Instances of high instances of truck and pedestrian fatalities or severe
Is it a truck route now? So why is trucks on there?
Can you explain the text?
I mean, why don't you let's put a sign there, no trucks? I mean, I understand what you're looking to do. One of the things that you're saying is trucks, then say no trucks.
So we'll look at signage, improving signage with
I mean,
for
if you're
no
gonna
truck
do all these things,
restrictions,
don't
but
put
at
no
the end,
trucks, what's the purpose of
at the
it?
end of the day, enforcement of removing trucks off the street is under the police department.
No, the trucks will do what's needed to be done. If we put a sign up saying no trucks on this route, then you can analyze it and see how you're gonna make it safer. But if it's a truck issue with the trucks, put the trucks out, put a sign for the trucks, no trucks. The truckers, they will abide because they don't want tickets. If they know this is not a truck route, they'll do that. I mean, this is one of the simplest things for us to do at this point, and then, you continue with your analysis. But put up the signs and let the truckers know what's going on. Save my kids for the time being.
You know what? That's a truck route, right? Because as a delivery person, we use Rochester Avenue. It's easy to get from East New York to Fulton Street. And there's a lot of supermarkets and a lot of places that we make deliveries to. Okay? Now, the DOT got so much money going around. Why not hire crossing guards to keep every intersection that you think is dangerous safe? Let's get jobs. Let's make jobs. Okay? This is color. This community is color of Rochester Avenue. Okay? I'm pretty sure there's people that need jobs. Let's do that. Why don't you guys create jobs? Crossing guard jobs. We can do it from 6 a.m. to midnight. Let's go.
Crossing guards are under the jurisdiction of the police department, and they are actively.
Okay, but you guys got so much money. Let's do something right with it. Let's not use that as an excuse. Let's make the correct choices. Okay? Now, we want to help the community keep it safe. Let's do that. Who are you guys backing up for mayor? Are you guys backing up anybody as a DOT? No? Okay.
Election day is not over, but it's not happening
All right.
here. What is the funding
Yeah.
for all of this?
You know how to shut them down.
What's the source? What are we
This is in-house funding, so
Right.
it would be already allocated.
It's budgetary money that's already been allocated. So there's no real question. I remembered my question. I will get to everybody. When you are talking about these curb extensions, what are the street frontage elements involved in the curb extensions aside from?
But this one is the vertical.
Anything more solid as part of this?
Boulders, flower pots.
We have some issues with height. Because we feel like a planter with a
If I want to see boulders, I go to Botanical Gardens.
The problem with the perfect values on Rochester is that they widen them to be
Oh, which is our issue. Interesting.
Any other questions? I'm going to turn to this lady because she was very.
Well, I was just wondering, if there is money to do this, why not, as this lady mentioned, why not just put traffic lights as opposed to stop signs? And would traffic lights like mitigate the need for these curb extensions?
But there exists traffic. People are still crossing outside of that.
I don't have the census, but I would bet that 2/3 or more of these have traffic lights over it. It's only to say the things opposite between Birmingham and Atlantic and opposite Park Road. But if it's a four-way intersection, it's
Everything is easy.
on this section of the houses.
Everything.
I'll go with that. Thank you, Julie. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I don't remember the
incidents.
Happen with the 10 or 11 years. So then how is this design helping to mitigate events?
It gives them the opportunity to safely cross even at those hours.
But it seems like it would be more of a lighting and visibility. Like, crossing.
Yeah, are streetlights part of these things when you look at an intersection for a sit? I mean,
No.
Do you think they should be?
Karen, then you have been Tracy.
Okay, so you said there are incidents of traffic incidents. So specifically where? Because we have to look and see if it's alternative issues or what it is.
The traffic. So this one is where we're seeing incidents along the corridor. You can talk about how that is on
When I'm looking at the block, I'm looking at the whole street view right now at home. And I'm going down Rochester, and I'm trying to see this. I think we have to be a little bit more specific and understand if it's when they come across Eastern Parkway or come, we have to see where
like a level
really narrow it down to see what's going on to understand if we should do curb extensions or not, if we need a light or just stop signs or what. I think we need to get a little bit more granular to be able to be that.
I just wanted to make a statement about these curb extensions and the bollards and planters. I think they really give a false sense of safety to pedestrians because people think that they can walk out of this convention. They think they're safe, but however, when a truck, perhaps not a car, but when a truck turns those streets, they may clear that, but their back axles don't clear it. As you may know, if you're familiar, people get caught under the back axle. That's when these fatalities and injuries occur. So it's always a concern, especially near a school where children can't even, they're not going to be able to be seen on these instructions. I think it's something that needs to be considered by DOT. And I only speak about this because I'm a deputy investigator for the medical examiner, and I've seen countless numbers of people caught under the back axles of trucks, box trucks.
Yes, I had a couple of questions. You said that part of Rochester was only, part of the street was only 32 feet. What is the other distance?
I think it was to 35, but not full. So it might be a little less.
So, that's sort of short. I mean, that's the length of some apartment buildings, but not apartments, like 30 feet. But my question then is like, well, it's something so narrow. How wouldn't enforcement be a more practical way to address this instead of building infrastructure that is sort of questionable in its use? If people are speeding, why not have somebody out there to check? Or like Mr. Burke said,
I'll reiterate what Emily said, which is enforcement is not under DOT's purview. We can have that argument whether it should be or shouldn't be.
Right.
We can have the argument about why public safety and NYPD isn't here talking about enforcing these things.
Well, I guess my question is are there alternative and less expensive and less intrusive methods to accomplish the same goal? Like Mr. Thurton said, why not put a no trucks sign? That's really easy. That's a stick and a little bit of concrete. Instead of building out all this infrastructure that is sort of, not so clear that it really works.
Yeah.
Isn't there data that does work?
Yeah.
I think not a question. Not a question. But I feel like there's a warrant in discussion.
I do have one more follow-up on that. Have you all gone back to intersections where you have done these kinds of introductions and seen what differences may or may not be?
Like going back to reading feedback?
Yeah, no. Is there like a follow-up analysis?
We usually do a year analysis.
Efficacy or not?
Yeah.
We're coming up on the year on some projects. Like with you, ma'am, then Julia, and then Alan, then Audrey, Celeste, and then we've got to move on. We've got 2 more DOT topics coming in. So,
I have a question about that. Um,
No.
and this is the survey.
Yes.
There are some numbers here, aggregate numbers in the survey. 85 people said double parking, 75 people said speeding, right? Is that fair to say?
but is that so? But that's not simple. Like the people know that.
But it's 85% is 40% of 85 is 40% of the respondents, so that's about 240 respondents. Is that, did I do that math right?
No, this is a multiple choice question.
So I did not do that
That's
math
my
right.
question. Is like the 85 people and then the 71 and the 70. Yeah. So can you just talk about the numbers so that you have an idea of the numbers?
Steve. So for the school, it was a nice,
I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Yeah,
So this is was a multiple choice question, as was mentioned. So folks were able to pick multiple issues that they flagged as problematic. So we could go back and take a look at the sample size and ask the folks that did the survey at DOT to reduce the numbers. But yeah, this is like an estimate since, again, people can pick multiple choices here. So it's a little hard to get an exact number.
I mean, it says 40% of respondents, 85 respondents. Am I reading the slide wrong? Are you saying
That's
that's?
what I'm asking for. Is that how that would probably be interpreted?
We could take a look at it and go.
Please get back to us.
Yeah.
I mean, 240 respondents is nothing to sneeze at, but it's still 240 respondents in a neighborhood that houses thousands. Was that here?
Yeah. Can you go back to the slide that shows all of the incidents on our And just so everyone for know, I actually took that survey. The survey did not leave a lot of wiggle room for thought of other issues that you might have found. Like even into the lead in, it told you what they were looking for, but that's not why I wanted to see this slide. So on this slide, I see that the top 3 areas where there are incidents are literally the 3 areas that I know for a fact that in the last 14 years, Michelle has reached out to DOT asking for a traffic study. The first location, we're going to start there and start north of Atlantic, 43. The light right there between Pacific and Atlantic, everyone backs up. And so once you get caught at Pacific Street, if you see that Atlantic light, you are rushing to get through. And if you're on Pacific Street trying to turn onto Rochester, you're going to come out and try to turn into southbound traffic so that you can get around the cars that are blocking an intersection to be able to get through Atlantic Avenue. That's number 1. Then at Eastern Parkway. So at Eastern Parkway, we have a lot of things going on. We have the people that are using Rochester Avenue to avoid the Buffalo Avenue mayhem for all of those left-turning cars onto Eastern Parkway. Then you also have the park entrance for it. So a lot of you might not know, but Rochester Avenue is the second half of Lincoln Terrace Park. So Lincoln Terrace Park is actually bisected. So you actually have a lot of issues that are happening in those clustered areas. And even on Eastern Parkway, because the turn has been eliminated from some of the other locations, Buffalo Avenue specifically, you now have to turn onto Eastern Parkway from Rochester Avenue. So, and onto Rochester to get to Buffalo from Eastern Parkway. So there has been traffic calming that is actually backing up, causing some of the issues on Rochester, in my humble opinion. I'm not a DOT engineer. But those 3 intersections right there, specifically, I know have been called out by the district manager, Michelle George, several times in the last 14 years.
Long track record of being noisy about these
DOT
issues.
said the lights are working as intended.
And yet we have these numbers. I've lost track of Alan and Audrey and then Celeste. Yes.
So I guess my understanding of how truck drivers work is that a truck can go off the truck route if it's going to its final destination, and this is a business district in a big stretch, right? So even if so there's no way to actually ban trucks on this stretch because people are making deliveries there, right?
So, like, I guess that's the idea of this program.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not talking about semi-tractor trailers. We're talking about box trucks that are presumably out to do commerce and serve the businesses on the street.
I can't remember which slide, but I saw a slide there saying that you did a survey, but it only mentioned merchant survey.
Intercept.
Excuse me?
Intercept survey. So you're just standing and intercepting people on the road wherever the destination.
So not merchants. These are pedestrians, passersby.
Yeah.
They may not live on the street.
Yeah.
There's a reason for the children.
But then why put merchant survey? If it's,
I didn't see anything about merchant survey.
yeah, it's there. It's one of those things. So,
So that's the thing.
go back.
So only two slides talked about
There's not a lot of merchants on Rochester.
Yeah, let me just scroll through and see if I see what this other stuff.
Merchant survey.
Those cars are red, green, and yellow. I mean, it's very. All right, so
Well, I would just encourage the implementation of those flashing pedestrian signs that you can like press the button when you're ready to cross at night, like a resident that doesn't have any kind of signal.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. First of all, the DOT, I thank you guys for analyzing the eastern section of community boarding. Because over the years, you guys have been concentrating on the western section, and I'm extremely happy that you guys looked at this because it is a concern. But again, that strip is a non-commercial strip, and it's rarely residential, and the emphasis to reduce that is to remove those struts on that thing for the time being, the safety of our kids. And if you definitely, with the survey, if you can, reach out to the people on that strip also and get their feedback. But again, thank you. But that, as Jillian was saying, that Eastern Parkway section, Rochester and Buffalo, although you guys did some work on Eastern Parkway, those two intersections are still very dangerous for the people crossing east and west on Eastern Parkway from those two intersections.
and we still want a crosswalk between the two lobes of Lincoln Terrace Park on Buffalo Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Flatbush.
Flatbush Avenue bus priority.
Oh, my God.
And then Albany and Troy, right?
So Albany and Troy, we sent a letter to the board, but we didn't offer a presentation. So that's board business to talk about, I guess.
I'm sorry. Explain that again.
So we sent the board a letter, a notification letter regarding Albany. In the letter, it was just, if you have comments or concerns, to please send them back. So that there's not a presentation tonight.
Okay. Give us a few moments on this. So this is essentially the text of what you said for the committee. So I misunderstood. I thought we were going to have a presentation tonight on this, but here is the proposal. DOT proposes to install a street improvement project in the vicinity of Albany houses, a United property bordered by Albany, Troy, Bergen, and Park Place, including a southbound protected bike lane on Albany Avenue between Bergen and Park, so again parallel to Albany houses, and a feeded sidewalk extension on Troy Avenue between Park Place and Bergen Street, a sidewalk extension. Visuals would be welcome. This will help calm traffic by reducing the roadway width for vehicles, discouraging speeding and other forms of reckless driving, painted pedestrian islands, curb extensions, turn calming treatments. So again, much of what we just saw on Rochester Avenue probably they're being proposed for Albany and Troy as well. Slow turning vehicles, improve visibility, short pedestrian crossings. Also, a mid-block sign-controlled crosswalk on Park Place between Albany and Troy. So mid-block on Park Place, Albany and Troy, to connect the pedestrian paths of Albany houses to the school complex on the south side. So sign-controlled, not light. In addition, a conventional bike lane on Albany Avenue, conventionally not parking protected, not separated, not barricaded or bollards, paint on the street. On Albany Avenue between Atlantic and Bergen, and again from Park to Eastern Parkway to create a continuous bike lane connection to the Albany houses in the neighborhood. And they've consulted with the necessary agencies. So
a drawing was also sent along with the letters.
So no bike lane between Bergen and Park on Albany?
No, it's a standard program bike lane.
But how is it different than
Protected bike lane, car protected between Bergen and Park, which is the wider block of Albany.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah, southbound protected bike lane in Albany between Bergen and Park, and then north and south of Bergen and south of Park, it's going to be paint on the southern street. Did we get
I didn't get anything that doesn't mean to go to NC George, but remember, tattoo exposed. Right?
All right, you're off the clock.
Michelle did want to know if the bike lane would extend outside of CD8 into either CD3 or CD9. I know CD3 is not Albany Avenue. I'm going to make up the street name. Let's call it Truth. It's not Truth, but, and I know south of Eastern Parkway and CD9 is still Albany and Troy, but are you guys going to continue the bike lane, or is it going to be like the Saratoga bike lane and the south side of CD16?
That's something I can get back to you on. I spoke with Michelle earlier and also gave you the information on England parking as well.
Yes.
Those are things that I'll look into and get back to you.
All right, so we will, what's your timeline? I'm sorry, since this is not an item I want to hear.
So the timeline for this, again, would be following communication, depending on the schedule.
All right, so we don't have a presentation to inquire about and give our feedback. Again, none of this we've seen until tonight. None of this has been shown to us until it comes tonight. So we're a little, our job is difficult. If you give immediate feedback while DOT's in the room, and hopefully they absorb it, take it back, and integrate it into the design. But we also have subsequent feedback, which is if you have any ideas that occur to you in the next couple of weeks, please send them to the board office. I introduced Julia Neal, but she's off the clock. But send it to the board office, and we will make sure DOT gets it. So again, it doesn't all have to be tonight. We don't vote up or down on these things. This is just informational and a conversation that we have. But there's no time limit for giving feedback. So if anything occurs to you, questions, comments, send them in. We'll pass them along, and we'll try to get them back and answers. All right, so there's no design on this, but think about this proposal. We'll try to find that drawing and circulate it to the committee.
A dedicated bike lane for a small strip of an open block, which I think somebody was mentioning angle parking. I mean, that would be more efficient for the neighborhood and should try to make it safer for the pedestrians. I mean, it's something that you need to take a look at for the community and not just for the bikers. And for us to work together. I mean, that's more efficient for our community to look at it that way instead of a dedicated bike lane for 2 blocks and then come back into a regular bike lane. I don't see that efficient, and it's only done within community board aid and not going in it's not in the northern section, and it's not in the southern section.
It's another Brooklyn and New York Avenue.
Yeah.
It truncates, and it's Marcus Garvey and Lewis for anyone who wants to. I had to look it up too.
But again, you guys need to take a look at it for what's efficient for the community and as a whole, because a lot of the residents here is having a problem with parking, and you need to work with us together to make it better for all of us, not just for the bikers, it's for everyone.
I'm going to take just 1 or 2 quick questions on this. Yes, ma'am?
I have a comment. It's more of a comment than a question, really. 2 years ago, at one of these meetings, I brought up the fact that at that time, only about 10 to 12% of New Yorkers rode a bike regularly as a means of transportation. And yet, these bike lanes are proliferating all over the city, particularly in our neighborhood. Now, are they proliferating because there's a need? Obviously, if it's only 10 or 12% of the people, there is no real need for that many bike lanes. So is it to encourage people to ride bikes?
Sure.
And if that's the case, I mean, then that's a form of coercion. That's a form of almost of social engineering of behavior. And then, let's be honest here. If you're doing it to encourage people to ride bicycles, I mean, what percentage of the population will adopt that behavior, or should they adopt that behavior?
That's a big comment. It's a bigger comment that deserves airtime because we have bigger presentations. Does anyone else have a comment on this Albany Detroit? Yes, Ms. Lang.
Okay, I'm going to go. The traffic from Park Place is so heavy, can't even park. So how is it for the park? I think it's going to be a problem for the bike.
The city's become an anti-car city.
I have a two-part question.
Okay.
One, how many stalls of parking are being removed for this project?
Yeah, you're not the
That they're not the public.
Oh, yeah. Do we have a number on parking?
I don't have a
It's
number.
still in formation. Okay. Second part.
Second part, just noting that if you do get around by bike, would appreciate any protected bike lane infrastructure in the area. Because does that matter?
Yeah. It should
One
be
at a time, please.
on law.
It's my floor.
Okay, it's your floor, I'm sharing.
I hear you. But I personally.
Hold on. Let him speak.
No, I'm talking. You speaking?
Let him speak, please.
I'm gonna speak. Okay, you wanna throw me out? You can throw me out. But I'm gonna express myself.
You're gonna speak.
Okay, I'm gonna speak. Okay, the city's become anti-car. Okay, maybe all the dealerships should move out of New York City.
All right.
Okay.
We're not talking about this right now. We're talking about Albany and Troy Avenues and the bike lanes, and then we're going to move on to these gentlemen are waiting very patiently to talk about getting bus priority.
Yeah, second part is just that, yes, like I get honked at and driven past really fast, and all kinds of stuff happens in painted bike lanes that don't happen in protected bike lanes. It's far more comfortable to bike there. You feel very, very safe by comparison, so I appreciate it wherever it can be implemented. I would like to know how many parking stalls are being removed, though, because that seems like a pretty obvious thing to be putting on the slide. And I don't know if
We'll try to find the diagram. We'll circulate it around as soon as we can find it. But thank you. All right. So now I'm going to turn the floor over to you, gentlemen, and you are.
I'm Justin Q, Assistant Director of Bus Priority. Southwest, I'm the project manager.
And do I have your slide?
Yeah.
I'm just going to
really quick, also joined by my colleague, TA Paul. Who's here to answer any service-related questions. Both our agencies are coordinating really closely. So apologies for having no color on the screen, but this will be posted online. We have previous versions of this at CDs 2 and 6 posted online already. It's the same presentation. Okay, yeah, so we're here tonight.
It's the same presentation.
It's the same presentation.
Let me just see if I can find it. NYC DOC.
But I think it's the issue.
It's the connection.
So that's the light? Yeah. Oh, I was going to hope it was just my power. All right.
Yeah, so we're here to talk to you about our vision for Flatbush Avenue and how we can make it a safer street that functions well for pedestrians and bus. So today we'll talk about our vision, and then how we got to where we are today with the project. We'll walk you through our proposal, how we're going to make things work, and then I'll go through summary and next steps. So our vision, why are we even looking at Flatbush Avenue? Why is as you all may know, this is a very, very critical transportation corridor, not only in Brooklyn, but for New York City. There are 132,000 daily bus riders that use Flatbush Avenue on 12 bus routes. And in the slowest parts, the corridor buses ride as slow as 4 miles per hour. About 59% of households around Flatbush Avenue do not have access to a private vehicle. There's also a huge transit equity component to our project. According to a center study, over half of workers, 51%, reporting being reprimanded, dropped pay, or even fired due to bus service delays. We're really trying to improve bus service here for a critical transportation that can really improve the lives of people who depend on this. And according to an MTA data, nearly 40% of all B41 trips start or end within the project area, which is between Livingston and Grand Island Plaza. And of those who get on or off at those stops, 80% are traveling south of Grand Island Plaza. So that you really depending on the B41 to travel long distances. We're also very, very aware that this is a huge commercial hub in the borough. It's a critical corridor for jobs, shopping, medical appointments, education, entertainment. Then we're also very aware that the truck route is vital truck route. So we really want to maintain curb access where we can on the corridor to ensure that small businesses here. A huge element of this project is safety and pedestrian safety in general. As you all know, Flatbush Avenue is a very wide street with long bouts of distances. Many turning conflicts, especially with all these trucks that are using the corridor. It is a Vision Zero priority corridor with 11 Vision Zero priority intersections. Since 2019, 55 people have been killed or severely injured across the board. So we presented this concept last year. It's the central running design concept. We just want to introduce this slide again, just so everyone can see. I know it's black and white, a little hard to tell, but as I mentioned, you can see the high resolution online. So this is going to be the concept that we want to pursue for the corridor. You'll see here what we're really envisioning for the street is for Flatbush Avenue to be a high-performing transit priority street connecting various Brooklyn neighborhoods. We are acknowledging that this new design would have less space for traffic, but there would be more space for people and transit. With this new reallocated space, there would be new pedestrian spaces, shorter crossing distances that would help improve safety, comfort, and neighborhood connectivity. So a little bit of background on how we got here. Next slide. I'll just really quick go over the project expense. So for the purposes of this presentation and this proposal, we're only looking at improvements between Livingston Street and Grand Island Plaza. We hope to continue studying sections of the corridor further south. So outreach for this project started in 2022. There's a lot on the slide. I won't go through it all, but just thought to say that we've been doing outreach and collecting feedback since 2022. Since then, we've spoken to various businesses. We conducted on-street outreach. We're checking both finding center, and we've spoken to elected officials who represent this area, as well as bids and community statements. So what we've heard from the feedback, as I mentioned, we've spoken to CVs, bids, and officials. We also done our own on-street outreach. We collected 155 pedestrian surveys, 118 bus boarding pattern surveys, and 78 business circles. Just to summarize some of the findings that we heard, they can kind of be lumped into three main categories. In regards to bus performance, not surprisingly, some of the main concerns regarding is that the bus is too slow, wait times are too long, and service is often unreliable. There were also a lot of issues with double parking, slowing down the bus, and a lot of people cited that it was often faster to walk to take the bus. This is not surprising in the downtown section, where it's runs left in the miles per hour. There were a lot of concerns about pedestrian safety. People noted that Flatbush does not feel safe for pedestrians. There's uncomfortable to cross the street. There's heavy traffic that causes noise pollution and air pollution. And there's a lot of issues with curb access for the businesses. A lot of double parked vehicles, they obstruct traffic flow and pedestrian crossings. And a lot of the truck drivers that deliver for the businesses often have to double park and double park quite far from the business. So this is just a quick recap of our last round of outreach, which was in June of 2024. We presented 3 design concepts that we were going to consider and study for the next year, so what we're doing past year. I'll quickly go over the 3 concepts, but the first was curbside bus lane. This converts the parking lane to a bus lane. The downside of this is that it removes curb access for businesses during bus lane hours. The bus lane is also more likely to be blocked, since even though we're removing the parking, we're not exactly removing the demand for parking. So this is sort of an ineffective design for a busy commercial strip like Flatbush. The second concept that we studied is an offset bus lane. This converts the rightmost travel lane to a bus lane. This helps to maintain curb access for businesses. Maintains that parking lane so businesses can load and unload, and customers can park to access the business. The bus lane still might be blocked from double parking in this concept, and since we are looking at the public realm and safety improvements, the public realm improvements in the offset bus lane design would not be as drastic as with the center running concept. So that brings us to the third design concept, which we want to move forward with, the center running bus lane. This converts the center travel lane to a bus lane. It minimizes bus and vehicle conflicts from double parking. And for bus stops, there would be bus islands that would double as pedestrian refuge islands that also shorten the crossing distances for this wide street, and also enhances safety and comfort for the pedestrian experience. And when compared to the offset bus lane option, it actually removes the same number of lanes. So if we're going to remove the same number of lanes, we want to do a Dream Bay. It's a huge corridor with a lot of safety concerns. So with just removing the same amount of lanes, we can get a much better public realm safety benefit, which is what led us to the center running bus lane. So I kind of briefly went over sort of our design process and how we got here. Let's just kind of quickly highlight the benefits of the center running bus lane. Provide physically separated space for buses in the middle of the roadway. This helps to dramatically increase bus speeds with similar effects on traffic as the offset bus lane. The bus boarding islands increase safety by shortening crossing distances, providing pedestrian refuge. They also provide near-level boarding. This helps minimize bus vehicle conflicts from double parking, improves access to businesses compared to curbside bus lane option. The near-level boarding platforms create a high-level transit experience that resembles, boarding a train. You can think about when you board the subway. That's even a level boarding platform. And then with these infrastructure improvements, it also helps to enhance the public realm in a much more drastic way that improves safety and comfort. It makes it Flatbush Avenue much more inviting. So what we've been doing the past year is studying the traffic analysis of this design. It's pretty wonky in the details, but sort of to summarize our traffic analysis efforts, what we did is we collected data of traffic volumes at all intersections and adjacent intersections within the study area. We did extensive modeling which is in accordance to our engineering standards, to study the potential effects of installing a bus lane across the Avenue. We also conducted origin destination analyses to determine currently where vehicles are going when they use Flatbush Avenue and where they might divert to in a future scenario travel past. So in summary, our traffic analysis and our outreach helped to inform our design process. Also want to acknowledge that we've received a lot of community support for bus improvements on Flatbush Avenue. We received a letter of support for the central running design from Councilmember Neve Hudson Wrestler. And we've also received letters supporting bus improvements on Flatbush Avenue. So now I'll walk you through the proposal. So this, there are three renderings on Flatbush Avenue that would sort of be illustrative of our larger concept. So this is on Flatbush Avenue, 4th Avenue. You see here that there are, it's a car-centric thoroughfare with high levels of congestion, traffic users, long crossing distances, and make it really comfortable for pedestrians. There's also insufficient amount of pedestrian space for such a busy hub in Brooklyn. So this is in front of Atlantic Terminal. There's lots of pedestrian activity and lacking in sidewalk space. So go to the next slide. Might be hard to see, but essentially in this concept, there's two bus lanes in each direction. In the middle of the road, there'll be travel lane on each side, and then curbside lane on each side. So this is very specific to this intersection. So in front of Atlantic.
This is directed which way we're looking?
You're looking toward downtown.
Looking north.
Looking north.
North. Okay.
So with this new design, we would have bus islands here. This would be a bus stop that would create a level boarding, making the bus easier to access, and having a more high quality transit experience. There would be new pedestrian spaces and shorter crossing distances that help to improve safety and comfort for pedestrians. So this is at Flatbush Avenue Prospect Place. You see here there are long crossing distances, no dedicated space for transit. Next slide. So here, the roadway would have two bus lanes in the middle, one in each direction, one travel lane in each direction, and then the curbside and loading lane on the curb. Wherever possible, we are trying to add curb extensions to shorten those crossing distances and increase safety. And with those new pedestrian spaces that with these curb extensions, there is an opportunity for more greening in the community. So we want to work with the kids and any local community partners for maintenance, trying to enhance the aesthetic. So the third location here is Flatbush Avenue and Park Place. You see here the same situation, long crossing distances, no dedicated space for transit. The next slide. So this is where the bus stops would be. You see here there are bus boarding islands in each direction with the central running bus lanes in the middle and then the general travel lanes on the sides. And this helps to create new pedestrian space, shorter crossing distances, and
so that's just one lane heading south.
Hold on.
Right? One lane heading south.
Okay, the next slide. So how are we going to make this work? The next slide. So curb management is a huge component of this project. It's something that we are working very closely on. Curb access remains essential, supporting the small businesses on Flatbush Avenue. We want to ensure that that the loading needs to continue to operate. We're identifying locations for truck loading zones and sites, and then also loading zones on the side streets so that businesses can maintain access. But we're also paying very close attention to the neighborhood context, to the land use, and the street design of the spurs. And where the parking lane is maintained on Flatbush Avenue itself, we are looking at more efficient uses of for management, such as short-term parking. So I mentioned we did an origin destination analysis to determine where cars are currently going when they're using Flatbush Avenue today. So what we did is we analyzed vehicles that travel through this intersection at Flatbush Avenue between Dean Street and Morgan Street. It's pretty data heavy, so we summarized it with a few talking points. Essentially, our findings were that about 33% of cars traveling northbound between Dean and Morgan Street are going to be up in Manhattan. So they're presumably using one of the two bridges. We were able to analyze where in Manhattan they were trying to go. We found that only 7% of vehicles ended their trip south of Grand Street, and the other 26% of Manhattan bound trips were ending their trip further north. Wow.
Hold on, let's finish the presentation.
Where's the CIA now? You want to know where we going?
Next.
So this is actually down from 44% since congestion. So about 30% of northbound traffic who actually are headed to other boroughs outside of Manhattan or either out of the city altogether. So they're just using Flatbush Avenue to get to distances much further away. We found similar patterns going southbound. And then we found that about 10% are making the trip locally, downtown Brooklyn, Brooklyn Heights area, about 6% and so now we want that to inform, how to inform what future travel, how do we accommodate future travel patterns? If we are, we are going to be really front that traffic capacity would be restricted in the new design of Flatbush Avenue. So we're not shying away from that acknowledgement. What we expect with the new travel patterns based on what we understand what current travel patterns are, is that some drivers to and from downtown Brooklyn will shift to faster, more reliable bus service. Some car trips to and from Manhattan will switch to alternate routes that we've identified during this map, or use transit service. And some of the more local car traffic may switch to regional and adjacent corridors that we sort of identified here, and we will continue to monitor and manage those alternatives. So just to summarize everything, next slide. So, this is a huge change. We're very aware of this. This is it's a bold vision for DOT. We have, very clear goals of what we want to see in this corridor for the needs that we've identified. So, we want to reimagine Flatbush as a transit and pedestrian-centric corridor that contributes to the long-term vision of improving the public realm of this area. We want to deliver high-quality transit infrastructure that improves bus speeds and reliability along this critical corridor. We want to maintain Flatbush Avenue Mall as a key connector for goods movement. We want to ensure that commercial access and deliveries are supported through the current management plan, and we'll continue to support great access strategies. And overall, we want to create a vibrant, accessible street that connects jobs, businesses, destination. So, just a quick overview of the timeline. Currently we're going to the CDs, we present to elected officials. We're collecting feedback for the central area proposal. We're continuing to work closely with the MTA on to making sure that this aligns with their service improvements and what they hope their future plans for this area. And the next steps would be to incorporate this feedback that we heard tonight. And we have a very ambitious goal of implementing in 2025, but there's still a lot that we need to figure out in terms of how that work. If it's a phased approach, so we will provide.
Thank you very much. Fair to say there are questions. So you guys are both going to take these? Yes. All right. Let me start off with the statement. Design. I mean, we've heard this is a theme we've heard tonight. Everything. You come to us with wonderful designs, crazy, beautiful, whatever you want to throw in, right? Designs are nothing without education. You teach the people how to use the designs you put together, and enforcement when they don't. And one of the things I can so easily see with these visions here is one car, one pedestrian, one thing gumming up the works here. What elements of education and enforcement are you going to be adding into this design?
Yeah, so we can, on the enforcement side, we can work with the automated enforcement. We have the ability to do the stationary camera enforcement. We can work closely with the local precinct. In terms of education,
have you shot this to the NYPD?
Well, we are in coordination.
You're in coordination.
And we are looking at how we can reinforce roadway behavior through design. There are barriers that we could.
That's one of my other questions. Are there going to be? You see, the line right here. It would seem to be sensible to have a barrier of some kind, even if it's just bollards to keep cars from going into the bus lane. Is that an element of this proposal?
Yeah, we're studying that. Practically, as Dustin said very well, this is a really limited width roadway. But every opportunity we can, we want to make sure our transit experience is high quality and protected, so that there's no double parking.
Double parking, bearing turns. So the other thing, and on this slide, I think it demonstrates it too, right? So one of the things I think people have a hard time understanding about this is how look at that mob of people on a skinny concrete island in the middle of a raging torrent of Flatbush Avenue traffic. How is that safer than what we have now?
To get there.
So these islands, they are very safe. We've done a survey asking people who use these types of islands where we built them around the city, and they're protected from drivers. A lot of times people feel unsafe getting on the bus. Currently, I've seen people pull through right behind a bus where the doors are opening up. So these restrict those types of unpredictable movements, and it allows the drivers to pull right up the curb. So improves visibility, has hardened safety features. You can see a bollard at the very end, and then we have shelters to protect from rain.
And I'm going to go to this slide because again, you've got this one is a nice zoom in on the island, and you see there's a pedestrian island for the southbound travel lane. But also, if you look across the intersection, I'm so sorry about the black and white, but you've got another one over here, right? And you've got a bus shelter. Is that going to be an integral element of each of these? Absolutely. Okay. So, and there's a shelter here that you can't see, I presume. That's right. Okay. So they're visible, they're three-dimensional, they're up, they're raised up. The number, and I know this is the question, the answer to this question is we're working with the MTA. But the question is, are you preserving the number of stops that currently exist along Flatbush Avenue, and are you differentiating between the limited and the local B41?
That's something that we're looking into. You guys have feedback for us. Something it's a key element in the toolkit to better space stops. But
because these are hard to move. Once you build these, we're not going to bust a pole anymore.
Yeah, we're very aware. We're working very closely with insurance design plans. So this is all being vetted with TA.
I just have two or three more smaller ones. Have you talked to the North Flatbush Business Improvement?
Yes.
Have you presented them? Have they given you their feedback?
Their main concern is curb access. So that's something that we're prioritizing. We're very close with them. What areas that they want us to concentrate on, this is that they want us to concentrate on. We're continuing to work with them.
Start at this end of things, Ms. Neal.
Okay, you asked this question last year, and the answer was about 8% faster. With the center lane design, how much faster along this very short stretch of heavily traveled B41 Flatbush Avenue? How much increased speed are you actually anticipating? And how will that then translate once you cross south of Grand Army Plaza, which is where the real bottleneck is, because it's less wide than this area here. So how much increased speed are you looking at?
So yeah, I guess I'll answer the first part of the question first. Based on similar designs that we've done in the city, we could see improvements of up to 25%. And with your second part of the question, you're right. There is not enough space for this design south of Grand Army Plaza, which is why we are breaking up the study.
So how do you anticipate keeping that increased speed? Because like the average you gave last year was 8%. Because actually, and when you think about it, the majority of riders on MB41, they actually get on either at Grand Army Plaza and head south, or they're getting off at Grand Army Plaza. So those buses are actually generally empty heading down south. It's just lazy people like me that want to see that go down south to go to my destination.
Yes, so this is a very critical question that we're going to dive really deep into in the next phase.
I understand. Now, my last question is, Flatbush Avenue is a direct artery to all of the western bridges, like the Brooklyn and Manhattan Bridge, getting onto the BQE utility, getting on to, I'm going to make up a name for that, not RFK. West Side Highway. Not West Side Highway, FDR. And no. It's the thing that connects downtown Brooklyn to Manhattan. No!
Brooklyn Battery Tunnel.
The Battery Tunnel.
A huge Brooklyn Battery Tunnel.
Yeah, so like it's a main artery to get to any of those things, and you're talking about reducing personal vehicles to travel with. Exactly what is the anticipated reduction of personal vehicle use? Like, are you looking for something like Livingston Street? Are you looking for something like Schermerhorn? Are you looking for something like Fulton, which is entirely car-free? Like, what's your anticipated reduction?
So we're not looking at a car-free street. We'll be clear with that. But we would need to expect about 40% of
that.
40?
That 14.
Oh, come on.
Can't
do that.
You have this graphic up that you're going to push it to Bedford Avenue, because that's going to be the next entrance to BQE. And that's the next way to be able to travel without having to make unnecessary turns to get onto either Tillery for Brooklyn or Navy for Manhattan Bridge. So, or you're just going to send people into crowded Williamsburg to get to Williamsburg. So, in the worst case scenario that people don't leave Flatbush Avenue, what are you anticipating? Like, have you considered what would happen and what the contingency is if we don't achieve that 40% reduction?
So, I guess, what I'll point out is that people are using Flatbush Avenue right now. It's the most straightforward shot to get across the borough. So we're very valid with that. What we're finding is a lot of it is very long distance. They're very long distance trips. So say if we started down here, there are alternate routes you could use to get.
But then it's crowded. Ocean Avenue is only one way.
Right. So what we found is that a lot of people's destinations, even though they're all federally their destinations are quite dispersed on the city. Yeah.
This is one of my. I don't quite know what this is trying to tell. Right? Tell me the story that this data is telling.
So
basically, so it's saying that people using Flatbush Avenue, about 33% are just trying to get to it.
So a third are going to Manhattan, a third are going somewhere else, and where's the third go?
Home.
Sort of just dispersed throughout the.
Okay, so they're studying the road.
But 26% of those other 33% using the bridge are ending up pretty far north.
So in theory, you're saying a mode shift for them. Why are they driving when they could be taking the tube train, right?
That's one of them. Or and there are also other routes to get through.
Or if you want to go there, why would you take Flatbush and slot up? And why wouldn't you take the battery and go to the west side? Okay. That's fair.
And pay. Take the back and turn on and pay.
Right. Well, I mean, you're going to tell them that it's
Well, I got
it. So that's, sorry, you're saying mode shift or vector shift, right?
But also prioritizing local. I think you're missing.
Right.
You're missing.
You're getting a lot of those people off so that people who want to go to Sahadi's or Trader Joe's have more room to maneuver.
Right. And I think that's an important part of the story that isn't being explained for the non-traffic engineer in the which is all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same logic as pedestrian pricing. When you're sitting at home in Sheepshead Bay, you're going to decide how to get to where you want to go.
I mean, most people do that now anyway.
But if you make one less desirable, in theory, you're going to make up room for somebody who's sitting in Crown Heights and wants to go to Bower Hill.
I understand what you're saying, but if the goal of all of this is climate reduction, carbon reduction, then you should literally keep people on the road for longer, and then longer distances to maneuver around this one, as you called it, straightforward corridor, no corridor for all of our.
And an example of that is Livingston Street has to monitor the traffic on the.
There you go. There you go.
So this does tie into Livingston.
Right.
A lot of people have hands up. A lot of people have hands up that this was a germane question. So it ties in with Livingston, right? So how is this model different from what you did on Livingston Street?
Because Livingston Street is a. So Livingston Street, not super. So I think it's good to traffic in one direction. Close up.
Livingston Street with the one-way direction reversal with an added bus aisle, loading aisle, not a center or anything.
Okay, that's fair. It's not a center. Okay. All right, so back to the questions. Karen?
Okay, so on Livingston Street, you did the bus lane in the middle with the island, you had the barrier, great. Because it's been traveled two ways, you said it would have an effect on increasing the bus frequency. Let me tell you something. On Livingston Street, they did increase nothing with the schedule. So unless you go and create a schedule working with the DOT, with the MTA, this is not having an impact when the MTA are the same.
Thank you.
Okay? It doesn't change the frequency of the bus coming. I experienced it myself. Up to 2 days ago, waiting 29 minutes for a bus that's 3 stops away down on Port, or whatever that street is at Livingston. So there's something you have to get deeper.
And it may not be you, it may be the MTA, but it's a big missing piece of this puzzle. Yes, ma'am. And then you, sir.
Question would be, again, the number of respondents that were that responded to whatever the outreach was, and also why it seems that the surveys that are sent out are very biased. Like, it doesn't seem like there are really responses for people to actually oppose or even have a different perspective. It doesn't really seem like there's opportunity to express that. I grew up on the I was crossing that street to become a mom. So I understand the need or the desire for time. But I think what is also important as a pedestrian, as a mother, as a driver, there also has to be accountability for pedestrians. There needs to be, like growing up, we were taught, as this gentleman said, before cross on the green, not in between. Look both ways before you cross the street. There has to be some level, and I know that that's not necessarily your department. I just feel like paying all of this money to make all of these changes without holding everyone accountable is, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and it's not fair.
Design, education is important.
Well, you know what you're going to do with this design? This design is going to make people drive down Vanderbilt and Washington Avenue. People are not going to put up with it going down Flatbush. And they're going to take it, especially if they're going to the city. They're going to take Vanderbilt and Washington down to Flushing and cut across. If not, they're going to go down Prospect Avenue all the way down to Smith Street and cut across Smith Street because nobody wants to pay for the tunnel. All right? So all you're doing is creating traffic. Congratulations.
Sorry, question first. The buses come all the way down from from which we say which we expect no change overall for this little stretch. We go from 4 miles to 5 miles an hour, but all this money and the bus is still caught down south of Fremont Plaza. Mentioning in the statistics of are you actually like there's so many bikers that run around. Pedestrians crossing the street against the left and follow, not paying attention to them. So I'm paying insurance for my like, in that sense, we need to be physical to actually pay the insurance. You might be the ones to use the public
They can cause an accident that could kill somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Swerve out of the way, you hit another car.
They could have their headphones on and not paying attention. Boom.
Focused on Flatbush.
So I don't have as many good questions as everybody else has. I wanted something clarified. This center bus lane is going to run from Livingston all the way to Eastern Parkway or only to Park Place?
To the northern.
Okay, so there's actually going to be a center lane all the way there. As an older person, having to cross the street to get to the safe center lane seems to me is kind of dangerous, especially giving arthritis and walkers. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the bus riders aren't just going to work, that they're elderly people who are going to doctor's appointments or going shopping, who don't have access to a car, can't afford to Uber. And that's my concern, is now, instead of getting on the bus at the curb, I've got to cross the street to get onto the bus. And that seems to me to be a design flaw.
So one thing with these bus boarding islands is that they are way more accessible. So a lot of times because...
In what way?
Well, I'll explain.
Okay.
In a lot of instances that I'm sure everybody here has seen and experienced, sometimes there's a double parked car truck in the bus stop itself, forcing the bus driver to pull 10 feet off the curb. I mean, somebody, with their children have to step out into the street where there could be asphalt mixing, and who knows what else, to get onto the bus.
This is Brooklyn, man. This ain't Long Island.
So what we're doing for all those people who rely on accessible
bus
entrances is more than ADA accessible entrances in these bus stops, so that the bus can stop directly at the sidewalk. So we find that a lot of senior citizens really like these and prefer these types of stops because they have so many amenities and they're so accessible.
So you've done surveys of seniors
Yes.
to make that assessment?
Yes.
I see.
How many?
We don't have specific numbers of seniors. We interviewed 118 bus riders at these bus stops, which, let me just say,
Out of the 132,000 people who ride the bus, 118 people, and you think that's a good data sample?
This is directly corresponding to my question.
It'd be fascinating to interview people who don't ride the bus, ask them why. That would be a fascinating case.
Because they
DOT typically do noise abatement studies like traffic patterns or because the noise is very long.
what type of noise do you mean?
Traffic.
Honking, sirens, backed up, the traffic backing up Flatbush Avenue going north in the morning.
Honey, get a helmet. This is Brooklyn, New York. This is Brooklyn.
All right.
Get a helmet. I know.
Talking about noise abatement.
This is a noise. This is New York City noise. Embrace that noise.
No, I don't want to embrace that.
You gotta embrace that noise.
I think you need to embrace being respectful.
I can't be respectful to a community board that is not respectful to the people of the community.
Okay, let's not spiral. Let's just keep moving.
You need to keep focused on the issue. Please do not address comments. Show your speakers here who are here to answer questions. Did I see that?
Were you gonna? Did she? Wait, did you answer?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I totally got sidetracked.
Is we see you don't do that. It is probably available. One thing we've seen actually so with these types of traffic reductions, it anticipates that is.
There's nothing wrong with trying to make living in the city more tolerable. We live here for a reason, because we want to and we like it. It doesn't mean that for those of us who really don't have the same choices.
Okay, what concerns me about this? The last time you guys were that one Livingston Street, the young lady got off the bus, did not see the other bus coming the other way, and she was killed. Now let's talk about wheelchairs assessment. Okay, I worked with United Cerebral Palsy, which is resource, and we had those outrageous guys, electric wheelchairs, and they loved the fact that they could go to church down on Smith. It's scaring me to death to see one of them try to cross the street to get into that so-called island you have, right, where the average person would not know how to get around. So they blocked off a lot of your island for other pedestrians who want to get, or bus riders who want to get on the bus. What are you going to do about that?
Sorry, but what is the issue?
The issue is, I come from an organization that has oversized electric wheelchairs, and our duty is to make them as independent as possible. Putting these islands in the middle of the street, you're taking away from their independence. I hear you about, somebody's parked at the bus stop, and the bus has to do this and that, and it makes it worse because they can't get on the public bus then. But I understand you trying to make it accessible. But again, it's not accessible because then their wheelchair is on this island. That wheelchair can take up to 3 pedestrians that stand or sit. So
we're designing these islands wide enough to be able to accommodate, multiple, like wheelchair or a walker or just a pedestrian.
That doesn't look,
curb cut here, so in
there
theory,
is a curb cut.
curb cut to get you
You
up
have
here.
all those people standing there, where would the wheelchair be able
Yeah,
to?
is that the question?
Yes.
Is it wide
It's a
enough?
hard time for them.
Geometrically after, right? So typically, these fences are set back a foot and a half, 18 inches from the curb. This rendering is not, this is not an engineering. So apologize for that. But
We designed our island to be accessible for wheelchair users to access getting on and off.
And you're making it accessible where it's easy for anybody, whether you're in a wheelchair or walking, right? To be able to have the stops near curb cuts. So I can cross to get over.
Yes, that's the idea. And that in a way that would never have the thing you just mentioned, which is where somebody's decided to just park in the bus stop. These bus stops, in theory, are unparkable, right? In theory. I'm going to come back around. I want to move this way. Tracy, did you have a...
Yeah, I did. So I just some of the questions I
Let's go to that.
So I was going to ask about the young lady who did get killed on Livingston Street. And the last time you guys were here, you said you would talk about this or address it, and you did not address it in this presentation. So I'm wondering, do you have a solution for that? Is there anything? I honestly, even knowing about this, I'm still deathly afraid of it, and I do not, and I'm not in a wheelchair or using a wheelchair or a walker, and it's not spring chicken, but it's still scary, and I don't see where this is more comfortable or seems more safe.
Well, I will observe that I do see you've got those hours up. But to Tracy's question, what makes this, and again, I know you weren't the Livingston Street guys, but what lessons did you learn that were incorporated?
So I guess one thing I mentioned, the design is different from this. This is it's not directional conversion. It's just putting bus lanes in the middle of the street. So people are waiting for the bus. This is not the sidewalk. But the traffic is still going the same. So there's more predictability for pedestrians. You can see where traffic is going.
I would just say
somebody's going to get this person sitting on the bench is going to get up and just start walking straight across, right? What stops them from doing that? Just walking into traffic. Because their bus left, but they didn't think to look for the oncoming.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just a variation of Livingston Street. It's like vanilla with chocolate chips and just vanilla. It's still vanilla ice cream. It's just got a little twist to it, and it's still. This feels equally as frightful.
Are you thinking about maybe putting some elevated factors on the yellow lines in the middle?
We can gather all these comments and respond to them afterwards.
Absolutely. That's what this is for. We're doing throwing stuff at you guys, and I appreciate it. In the back, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm not going to say one way or the other whether I think this is a good idea or bad. That's, but the fact is that I'm not seeing enough information here. When you show these renderings, and I know that they need better in color, I'm sure they need better in color, but not better enough. Here is a simple plan, example plan that shows us that then has maybe some engineering qualities about, like, just tell us the dimensions that we're talking about. Obviously, I think you're talking about a full length, so you're talking about, what, 12 feet, 13 feet? What are you talking about?
That's a very,
Give it to us.
very valid
That's what we need, because, but no, if I may, because I've had my hand up since the very beginning, as soon as you stopped on it. Okay. And I do appreciate the renderings that we did, but that's frosting until you tell us the basics. And we need to lay out the basics. Otherwise, you're going to have another half hour longer than, at least, than this conversation needs to be.
Right. So I'm just going to respond to that. This round is to gather comments and feedback for the concept, and we will be updating.
But sorry, to follow up. So then that means you're going to come back to tell us, what you thought, and then you're going to come back again because you've gotten our feedback then.
Well, the feedback would be this round, and then we're going to go forward
a couple of times.
So everybody's office is available to take.
Uh-oh.
Let me say, because I'm not DOT, I don't
All I'm
expect.
saying is clarity from the beginning will cut down your having to come back and are being frustrated.
I'm not expecting them to come back. Given this
Yeah.
aggressive timeline, then if
And
they
that's
want to,
why
they
I'm
will.
disappointed.
It's an open door. But I'm not expecting.
So you did present plans and renderings in a previous round of outreach, displaying a center line. So we can.
I mean, your process is your process. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that, to your point, I think that the next step will be engineering specs, but an implementation will follow hard on. I'm not going to come back and shop the engineering specs around.
So
we're here for concept. Yes, sir. Brian.
I just I think it would be helpful if the team expressed kind of how they've done outreach to older adults and how like maybe the design would evolve over time. It sounds like improvements have been made, additional improvements are planned. If maybe this outreach hasn't been done like very deliberately and specifically to older adults, maybe that could be something that could be done before anything's implemented. It sounds like we have a lot of concerns that remain. And it sounds like some things have been done, but not, maybe not enough to really try to get this design or iterate improve on prior designs. And then I guess the other thing would be just, I would be curious, I know there might not be another outreach session, but very curious about the bus riders who have experienced these designs, particularly more recent ones of center lanes in other districts, and if the demographic of bus riders change, if fewer older adults use the bus as a result of the center lane design or more. I don't know if you have that data or not, but it seems like that would be a helpful data point just to this conversation.
I think I'm not sure we can help connect with MTA and see if we have that data point because that is a really interesting data point. Might be challenging to identify, especially with aspects.
And this is not, all due respect, this is not, you didn't invent this. This concept works in cities around. Exactly. Did you borrow data from them?
Okay.
I mean, I know New York's different than everywhere else.
Yeah, let's not go there.
I'm just curious.
Are there any others that are running bus lanes in
I see.
the city?
Yeah, so Yale Grant Highway in the Bronx.
I didn't call on you. Go ahead.
So Yale Grant Highway in the Bronx and also 161st Street in the Bronx. Two of that.
Excuse me, which Grant Highway?
EL Grant. So again, do you have the data from those that show any demographic shift? So
that's something that we have to
Linda.
Just want to follow up on Brian's point. If you could talk a little bit more about how you reached out to older and disabled residents. I have a two-part question because I just want to reiterate that we had several senior and disabled community members who were planning to come tonight, but 105, 108 heat index is very dangerous for seniors. And we did ask the community board if they would reschedule this meeting so that the people who are most impacted by these changes could weigh in. And they told us that you guys were unable to reschedule. So I don't know if you are able to do a separate meeting closer to Flatbush where the people actually live, because a lot of people, we're not just a commuter society, and it feels like we're being designed into being a commuter society, but a lot of people are dependent on these bus lines because the subway lines are not accessible. So a lot of wheelchairs and walkers and slow moving people like that, they rely on these buses very much. And I understand what you're saying, that there's a lot of space here, but there really isn't if it's crowded. On a sidewalk, you can back up if you don't feel safe, if someone's acting a little goofy, if your wheelchair needs to go around, you can move around a lot more on a sidewalk. The other thing I want to point out, and I do want an answer to how are you going to ensure that seniors and disabled people are included in this? But I really want to make it very clear to everybody that there is a very large hospital system on 6th and 7th. So when you say, oh, 30% are going to Manhattan and 30% are going here, that means 30% of people live here. We're a community. And we've already had Barclays go up, and we've already had all these high rises go up. And what the high rises mean are double parked Ubers, because everybody's getting picked up and delivered from that one door. So when I see this design, one, I think it's overkill from Grand Army to Atlantic. I mean, maybe to St. Mark's. But I don't see any need for this from Grand Army to St. Mark's. I understand you want to do it, but we already have issues with Vanderbilt. Now you're talking about doing a road diet on Atlantic. There was a proposal here, I think at the last meeting, to close off Carlton at Flatbush. I mean, we're just getting shrunk, and we are a community of people who actually live here. So can you talk about the seniors and what you've done to loop in the hospital and what you've done to loop in the FDNY?
So we can start with first. Is the very emergency take how many buses, but they
But what if there's a fire on the lane that is only one traffic lane, and now there's this island? You know, have you ever seen a big response where 3 or 4 engines show up and block a lot of space?
FDNY are allowed to operate with
Across islands, though?
opposite direction of
So there's a new law. There's a new law, 104A, that the local guys and females, guys being non-gender specific, have to be looped in. Have you guys started doing that yet? Have you been working with the local? Because Rescue 1 is on Union and 7th, between 7th and 8th. So Rescue 1, for those who don't know, is like kind of the special forces one that they come across Grand Army Plaza to get to Prospect Heights, and then they loop around Flatbush. So
are reviewed by FDNY Central Unit and also local housing.
So this is not grandfathered in. The local houses are going to be.
So at this point, local houses do have the ability to make comments. However, this
Since March? So can you talk about the seniors and if you'd be willing to do another?
It's 9:25.
Is anyone taking notes? If you're taking notes.
We did, you know,
Yes. Yes. Definitely not Robert. Yes, but we can definitely do that.
The issue I have is the lack of coordination. So we're going to use this. The issue is we want people to stop using to use public transportation. The public transportation is not safe, and the cost continually increases, right? So you guys need to work with MTA in order to make these things work. Right? You can't work in silos because you can't expect people to stop driving into public transportation where public transportation is not safe, super expensive, and the infrastructure is continuing to fail. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys have to work together. You can't work and say, I'm going to choose room and then. 5 miles per hour is going to work on time.
Right, and throw like my PD on there too.
just be great. And I think the original slides, like, hence the as it's stores, access, it just be. So don't force it. I really not you love the spirit of the comment, and we're trying to do that. But it's not a speed. No, we have it on third act, and we talked about it 2 weeks ago.
So this project is super you have a race possible that sort of capital program. So there is a lot more
I will leave it to your expertise.
yes, but that's something we will consider for future basis.
I thought your answer
Well, it was going to be and it's but you could put it on us
because the other space you can just do from here to here is a raised cross. It's still a jump from here to here. But if your objective is to get people that grades high, you don't need to do all of the cross.
The exact criteria.
But really interesting.
It's not
We're just gonna do it. They don't care what we're saying.
We'll be able to extrapolate all of the questions that you have, but we'll be able to take some.
It is 9:30. I see.
Are you guys able to do another outreach session? Not necessarily with CBA, but
Hello? He said in the presentation that you took the big extents around the plaza, and I just read the council amendments press release from May 28, 2025. She said you're going to Empire, so which is it similar going to Living Center Plaza or Living Center?
The center lane is going from south, not study.
So has anyone reached out to the office to tell them that the information on the website?
Or are you going to wait until the Karen?
Okay, similar to what Julia just said, stopping at Jordan Army Plaza, if you think that stretch that you're talking about is congested, you will see congestion until you go 2-3 blocks down. Have you guys looked at the impact that you, when you stop at Grand Army Plaza now, what is going to happen to the blocks up? Because that's where congestion really is. So I think you need to start thinking with, when you implement that, what's going to happen? That really, really needs to be looked at.
I recently wrote a system like this in Madison. It seems to work well, and I think a lot of what was important is the level of pedestrian parking on the islands. So I think probably everyone in this room is concerned if with an island design that needs to be completely safe, that not have, or even if someone drives a truck into it, the island design needs to stop the truck, which I think, like some of the islands further north on Flatbush Avenue, see that level of fortified. And yeah, I think we just need that level of fortified pedestrian islands to make the design like that safe. That's fine.
Tracy.
Okay. I can't see you having this medium up to Grand Army Plaza. It looks like you're going to have to stop it by 8th Avenue. But you have to remember, you have Grand Army Plaza is a circle. And you have cars coming from Plaza Street, Flatbush. It's ridiculous. It's because then you're going to run right around the fountain, and once you get around the fountain, then you have the largest public library in Brooklyn, right? And it's narrow.
in the circle again?
Yeah, it's narrow.
So that would be
Very narrow. Yeah, very narrow.
Two things. It seems like if you're not going to come back to us, it's not a question of what you're going to do, but that you're going to do this anyway. Is that true?
So, so we're right now we're collecting feedback. We're still working through details of the current plan. But it's still going to go to the that we guys have grades. But in terms of timeline, this is we're at this point we're just collecting.
Okay. And then the other question is what happens if this doesn't work out the way you think it is?
So we'll be closely monitoring. We'll be closely monitoring.
No, I understand, and that's good.
They'll get back to
will monitor, but then if it doesn't work as beautifully as you had anticipated, then what?
That's not a question we'll be able to answer today.
Can't hear you.
It's not a question we'll be able to answer today.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you just clarify if you are going to close Carlton and Flatbush, because that's but that's going to impact their design.
Let's turn to Emily for 2 minutes. But thank you.
There's a request, but it hasn't been studied for determination.
And
Yeah,
it would be done in light of what it probably wouldn't happen until this is already existing at this point. So, yeah.
Because it needs to be, it's going to impact.
And also, what about closing off Grand Army Plaza between the park and the arch? Is that also going to be studied in the impact to this?
Yes, Grand Army Plaza, the capital design is our outreach. Our second round of outreach is going to be starting up soon, and we'll have more information on you about the next steps for that. But for now, it's just.
But is that going to be studied along with this?
Everything that is happening is all the numbers, all the analysis are all they all work with each other.
We work very closely with that capital team on Grand Army Plaza. And our data collection, we're all in sync.
Yeah.
We meet very frequently with the MTA. Honestly, I probably send you many emails, honestly, but we're all,
Luke and I have an email, or we've been meeting with people.
Yeah. So it's a lot of coordination, and we're really excited because it's going to bring a lot of safety.
Well, I'm glad you're excited.
Thank you very much. It's late.
Hi, folks.
And I want to thank everyone else for coming and enjoying the cool, relative cool of this room.